Hello, I'm 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗪𝗓, Senior Internal Audit Advisor for Audit Board. Thank you for joining me in another of my videos where I interview leading practitioners, professionals, and others within the audit, risk, and compliance fields on being an agent of change in the era of disruption that we're all living through. I'm joined today by Trent Russell. Trent is the founder of Greenskies Analytics, and he is a graduate of the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, with an MIS degree. Before joining EY, he was part of their IT assurance practice where he served in a number of industries. Trent later joined the financial services offices at EY and facilitated the development of data analytics procedures. At his firm Greenskies, he helps internal audit launch their data analytics, get actual results, and move up the analytics maturity model. Trent, it's great to have you with me today. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely, thank you.
You know, Trent, you've obviously had a lot of interesting experiences, both from your time at EY as well as your own clients, helping organizations drive transformational change through analytics. Expectations for the internal audit profession are on the rise. They have definitely been going up in recent years. Risk velocity, risk volatility are creating a seemingly endless string of surprises for organizations. Are you finding that is an impetus for internal audit organizations or internal audit functions to become even more proficient and more committed to data analytics, the fact that there's so much change around risk?
Yeah, I think we have to. Being able to look at, for example, an entire population and be able to get the results from that, as opposed to, and this is the classic use case, that we've all heard, but even just being able to do that is something that is transformative, especially if we can do it in a way and communicate those results. So that's a big thing that I see is even if the analytics work is being done and it's being done at a high level, if we aren't sharing those results with management and the board in a way that they understand and go, hey, look at look at what we're actually doing and the change we're actually creating, then it's not gonna take off as well as it should.
The environment we've operated in for the last 2 years, the COVID environment, there are two words that get used a lot to describe the experience we've all been through: disruptive and innovative. Those audit departments who were able to navigate disruption and to innovate in the way they undertook their mission are the ones that have been most successful. What are some of the tools that you've seen internal audit departments adopting to help them become more agile and be more responsive to the environment their organizations are facing?
Yeah, even something as simple as video. And I'm not talking about Zoom, although Zoom and Teams are great and being able to be flexible there with getting in front of someone. But even just using video to document something as simple as a procedure. Analytics procedures or audit procedures is something that we did earlier than 2020. Simply recording a 60-second video and using that for documentation is something that I feel like is innovative. That's not crazy, budget blowing type of thing, but still can make an impact. So even thinking about innovation from that perspective of let's innovate everything where we can, even 1% difference across 100 different things is going to add up in the aggregate. So it's definitely important to, for me, I think anyway, to have an innovative mindset when it comes to even just the day-to-day.
I think you're right. A brand new IA report just came out documenting the state of the profession, and they concluded their survey of more than 500 chief audit executives and other internal audit leaders across North America concluded that resources are slower to come back to internal audit than they were to be taken away. And so that means with all the risk, with all the disruption that internal audit departments are facing and their companies are facing, greater expectations, they're not getting the people back, they're not getting the resources back as fast as probably they need. What kind of advice would you give a chief audit executive in an organization who's trying to stay abreast of all the demands and expectations when it comes to using analytics?
Yeah, you have to talk to people. Strategy is going to be a big piece of that. And I feel like for the most part, the best way to strategize is to talk to other people, whether that's your peers that have also used data or are innovative in the sense of using technology. I mean, you have to talk to people. It's one thing to, and I guess it's easy enough to say, read the latest from the IIA or from Audit Board or whoever, and there's definitely, that's a foundational element. But if we're not talking to people that have actually experienced it, whether that's a vendor or a practitioner, it doesn't really matter. If we're not talking to those people, then it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah, communication has always been critical, and I don't think it's ever been more critical than right now. So Trent, in my book, Agents of Change, I describe change agents in internal audit as those professionals who are catalysts for transformational ideas that help create value for the organizations they serve. Does that description resonate with you for internal audit?
Yes, I like that definition. I like that description. If I added onto it again, it would be we have to get out and market what we're doing also, even within the audit function amongst management. And there's various ways that people do that. And road shows. I've heard of a lot of audit functions that have done road shows within their organization to kind of spread the word, and those have been really effective from what I've heard. And so I definitely like the definition. But I feel like we have to be loud about what we're doing. The good that we're providing, the value that we're providing, people have to know where it's coming from. And so that's kind of been my kind of sticking point for a while now within internal audit.
In the book, I actually say you can't be a change agent if you're a secret agent.
Yeah, nice.
If no one knows what you're doing, if no one is able to identify the value that you're bringing, you probably got a couple of problems. Number one is you may not be delivering enough value if they don't recognize it right off. But number two is we got to be comfortable talking about the value we bring and the potential that we have to help the organization even more. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and there's, dashboards were a big thing for me as far as how to market what we're doing. Being able to put it in either a dashboard or something that's visually appealing, data visualizations, is something I know I've talked to with Audit Board folks about in the past, and truly believe that if we can show the work that we're doing in a manner that grabs attention and people are kind of forced to look at it, I think that's how we can continue to become change agents for sure.
In the book, I also make the point that we won't have any credibility as a change agent for the organization if they don't see us making any changes in the way we do business.
Yeah.
And so that brings us back to analytics, which I think most people are quick to recognize is a transformational approach to how we do our work. But I think there are going to be a lot of CAEs and others maybe who are watching this who say, we just don't have the expertise to use analytics. What would you say to a chief audit executive who said, Trent, I want to do it, but I don't have anybody on my staff that I think are sort of experienced and seasoned enough?
Yeah, so that's the big problem that we're trying to solve is how do we identify the person on the internal audit team that would be a good fit for analytics? That's usually the problem. It's not like analytics isn't just a tool. It's much more about a mindset. And so I feel like that's one of our kind of missions for this year. It's how can we figure out who that person is? Because of course, you want to keep that person on your team. They know the business better than someone from the outside. They already have the relationships, and so they just need the skill set to be able to continue to add value with using tech and using data. And so I think that's, I think finding that person is big. If you can't find, there's three options. Find the person internally that can do it. Bring on someone with an analytics background. They probably won't have the audit background, but that can be learned. Or you outsource it to a contractor or someone. Those are really the only three options you have in terms of a human resource executing audit.
But is it fair to say that the tools that are out there are getting a lot more intuitive and that you don't have to have some really technical expertise to use them?
Yeah, I would say up until maybe 5-8 years ago, you basically had to be a programmer. You had to know how to write code, you had to know how to write scripts, and that's a huge barrier to getting into analytics. Since then, there's been a movement towards what they call low code or no code tools. And so the analogy that I always give, if you think about 20 years ago, if you wanted to build a website, you had to sit there and type, I want this image that's in this location to be on this part of the website, and I want it to be this size. And now, if you want to do that, you click on an image and you drag it over to the website and you drop it. And so that's how the analogy I make to analytics tools, it used to be you had to program everything. Now it's more drag and drop. And so I could see in the next, especially 5-10 years, those tools continue to get easier. I know other tools that didn't have that functionality have started to move towards that, and that's going to make it significantly easier for an individual to do analytics. There's still the strategy side and the methodology that still needs to be taken into consideration, but the tools piece should get easier over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, so good points, Trent. Audit Board is announcing this week that we're launching some new analytics tools, and I'm confident that Audit Board, knowing the products like I do, is going to be providing the kind of tools we're talking about, the ones that will make it much more intuitive. They're much more intuitive and will make it much easier for internal audit professionals and others to use them.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate all your great insights. Let me close by just sharing with you that when we wrote the book, when we did the Agents of Change book, we started by surveying 600 chief audit executives from around the world to identify what are the attributes, what are the characteristics of the real change agents in our profession. And there were 4 attributes that came out loud and clear: business acumen, a strategic mindset, a relationship-centric, and innovative. You've been around the internal audit profession for a good chunk of your career. Did those resonate with you as far as things that people need to be capable of?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the emphasis on relationships and being innovative. The business acumen obviously is huge, and the piece that I would kind of sub in there that we've talked about already is the marketing side of things. And so you can be innovative, you can have the acumen, you can have those characteristics, but again, like you said, if you're a secret agent instead of a change agent, then it's not going to make as big a difference.
Yeah, I think the point is, if nobody knows what you're capable of, then you're a secret agent, and you're not going to be a change agent.
Yep, exactly.
Well, listen, Trent, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you again for joining me. Look forward to hearing more from you and learning more about analytics in the months and in years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.